Back on the pregame show here on AABaseball.tv. Dominic Stern here with Augie Voight, today's starter for the Lake Country DockHounds, as the DockHounds look to win the series over the Sioux City Explorers. And Augie, it's been an eventful season as well as a career for you. Still yet to play an affiliate ball. I know you're tracking towards that. You were a free agent at the beginning of the season, signed before the first road trip, and just kind of how you've gone on this DockHounds team. When someone had to double up with me on the bus ride up to Winnipeg, you were there because you were kind of the new guy on the block, pitched in long-distance roles, and all of a sudden you've worked your way up some high-leverage spots. Now you're a starter on this team, 3 straight starts now with today's outing. You know, how have you been able to work yourself up, and how has everything been going for you with this Lake Country team?
I mean, it really goes back to just how my career started in the first place. You know, it was really just all about taking an opportunity when it was there. And I think that's really what professional baseball is about in general, especially if you're somebody like me who I didn't get drafted, wasn't in affiliate ball, and didn't have that resume in order to help me out at this level. So, you know, I started at the bottom in the Pecos League, worked my way up, and it was always just about finding that opportunity. So coming into the season, I was really prepared for that. I kind of understood the way that things worked. So when I got called to come on here, I knew it was going to be, hey, like, it's an opportunity. It's not guaranteed. Nothing ever is, right? So you're always fighting for a job, and then once you have it, you're fighting to keep it. So I guess I just came in with the right mentality of, hey, I've got to really show something. And, you know, it's gotten me through every inning that I get to pitch. In my opinion, it's just another opportunity, right? So, you know, I've done pretty well this year, and I've, you know, gotten up to, you know, a big goal of mine this year was to become a starter again, and I've gotten that. But, you know, today's another interview, basically. That's the way you got to look at it. Yeah,
it's been fascinating to watch you kind of grow on this team, because your first outing, your 4 innings, the game was a blowout. First batter faces you, hits a home run. Rest of the game, no runs. Then you're making your first professional start in your next outing, and then one time that stood out to me was when we were on the past road trip against the Lincoln Salt Dogs. You come in for the save in the 10th inning, you get it, got some help from your defense, but that's part of baseball. And then the next day you come out and you pitch 3 innings out of the bullpen in a long-distance role. Is it any different for you given, like, whether it's a high-leverage spot, you know, a low-leverage spot, you know, where you need some innings out of the bullpen or a start? Is there anything different between those 3 times?
You know, As a guy who's been really like a 1 or 2 inning relief guy my whole pro career, like mentally, I've kind of been in that space. And so now that this year's given me the opportunity to learn, you know, what it's like to have different roles at this level of the game. You know, I always thought it would be, oh yeah, it's just pitching. Like, you just go out there, like, it's you versus a hitter, regardless of the score or whatever. But that stuff really does have a big impact on the game for sure. And I mean, I've been in plenty of situations, kind of like what I did with Gary last year with that Winnipeg outing, where it was, we're up or down a bunch of runs, just go eat the innings. And sure, as a player, there's still pressure there, right? You still have to do well. You still have your career on the line, right? And that's the way that you buy a better opportunity. And so that pressure's still there, but there's definitely a bigger difference when those hitters are up there in a tight spot, like let's say a save situation, extra innings, or in a start, you know, and it's a 1-0 or 0-0 game, right? Every inning now is that tight situation. They're fighting. They're trying to get that first run across the board, right? They want to get you, you know, gone and get somebody from the bullpen in there as soon as possible. So I think there are different types of pressures depending on the role you have, right? And, you know, it'd be easy to say looking back, oh, you know, a 1 inning relief role seems easy now, but it's really just a different type of pressure that you have, because now it's 3 or 4 days out of the week you're expected to be ready. Now as a starter, it's, I've got to be ready to go today. I've got to do all my stuff, and this is my big day to, you know, sell out for the team. And then the other days in between that, it's preparation, right? So you get that kind of mental break in between to focus that you don't get as a reliever. But as a starter, when you're like, hey, you need to go 5, 6, 7 innings today, that's an extra different pressure. So not that it's any more difficult or anything like that, but I just think it's different.
And you talked about getting back to a starter's role. You're kind of in there. You're making your 3rd straight start. You went 6 innings, career-long start in your pro career, 107 pitches, career most. And then your last start out, you gave the team an opportunity to win against the Kane County Cougars in the biggest series of the season. You know, how awesome has it been to kind of get to that goal in such a short amount of time, and what are you doing to make sure you can stay in that role?
I mean, as far as staying in the role, it's just preparation. And honestly, for me, it's been learning from a lot of the guys. Mike Shawarn has been a big help for me, just picking his brain. Guy with a lot of experience and, really has his process down. And so for me, going into these starts, in Milwaukee, I only had like 2 days notice, right? But, my last one against King County, I really had the full 5 days here. When you're pitching, prepare for it. And so I was able to actually go through a routine based on what I learned from some of the other guys. And so I think that's really what it is. If I want to keep a job as a starter, obviously you have to pitch well, and part of that is the preparation. If you prepare well, you go out there with the confidence that you're ready to go. And then, usually most of the time, I feel like if you really have that confidence from preparation, it's going to go well. And that's not always the case, but, that's at least the feeling you have to have going into it.
And so you've got a ton of pitches that I can't really identify myself watching up from the booth. And you always tell me, like, jokingly, like, oh, Dom, you got that pitch wrong. So I know you got a sinker, you got the combio, the changeup, the fosh, which is a pitch I had never heard of. And then you also have a curve, I believe. Or is it more of a slider?
It's like a slider cutter.
Okay.
Yeah, like a hard slider.
So can you explain, like, what's your, like, process with these pitches? How do they, like, come into your repertoire, and how do you not always use them, because we don't want to give away anything to the Explorers and these other teams in the American Association, but, like, how did you come up with these pitches, and, like, what's kind of the plan of attack sometimes?
So it's kind of been fluid, honestly, and something I always preach, when I'm coaching and just talking to other guys, is pitching is really about making adjustments, right? And so this year has actually been my year of kind of refining everything that I've been learning since, I started playing baseball. And I feel like at a lot of the lower levels, like high school and college, there's part of that process, but because you get away with so much more, you don't have to necessarily, let's say, a slurve, right? Let's say it's a decent pitch in college that might not play at a higher level, right? So that might be something to refine, that if you never played at that higher level, you just never knew. And so for me, a lot of the ways that I've pitched in the past have kind of changed in order to fit, what I need to be able to do at different levels of the game. And part of that has been my fastball, and I think you'll notice I throw a lot of them. And early on in my career, it was more of a natural cutter. It was like a riding kind of cut, two-seam. And as I got older and got a little bit more power behind the ball, I'm not exactly sure what the change was, but all of a sudden it was starting to drop and sink. And so I kind of took that and ran with it because it was giving me some success. And now I've built pretty much my whole repertoire off of that pitch, because I know I'm going to throw that a significant amount of the time. And so how does everything play off that, right? So the cutter is really just designed to tunnel with it and move the other side. It's not supposed to be a special pitch. It's not supposed to be some wipeout big league pitch. Just something that's going to look really good off of my sinker and then play to getting a contact out. The fosh is an interesting one. I've had that pitch for a while, and that's changed as I've thrown it more as well. I learned that from a guy named Juan Acevedo, 8-year big leaguer, and he kind of taught it to me as more of a changeup, and I've thrown it as more of a breaking ball, but that speed difference is more changeup-like, so I still keep to it as like a split change. And that pitch I could go on for a long time about. But the changeup is a new one that I picked up this offseason just to play off of the sinker, and really it's just my tool against lefties, right? If I want something other than the sinker to move away from them, that's my go-to for that.
Cool. It's been the dad strength that's watched that velo increase for you, Augie. Keep going out there, keep balling. We got the first pitch coming up, 6:35 Central Time, right here on AABaseball.tv.